Hello and welcome. It's not often that you meet someone whose firm has designed the one-button mouse for the Mac and the Lisa, the defibrillator which you see in every airport, and the simple one at that, and the laptop. Remember the shape of the laptop, the clam shape, and that patent belongs to IDEO, and I'm talking to John Kelley. Thank you so much for being here. So first question, you have a vast sort of history of designs. Right? And today you're talking about simplicity, and you're talking about subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful.
Right.
Tell us more about that.
Sure. That concept, by the way, comes from John Maeda, who is a designer, head of the Rhode Island School of Design, who is now a venture capitalist. And so that's a trend that we're following as well. I am the founder and chairman of a venture capital firm now as part of my IDEO role. And so, yes, when people say simplicity, sometimes they think you mean oversimplifying or not giving people what they want, but actually it's the opposite, is giving people just what they want and not layering in all of the other things that maybe they don't want. And that's partly why apps on the smartphone are so popular compared to the traditional applications that live on a laptop. Apps are so simple, they do one thing really well, right? And we love that in our lives. We have complicated lives. And so people love simplicity, and simplicity is really successful.
Right. And it seems to me that there is a huge opportunity for redesign and not just design. I mean, I was interested in the example that you were quoting once about a CAT scan machine.
Yes.
And how, or an MRI machine.
Right.
And how, it was just not child friendly, and,
right.
and it was redesigned to make it child friendly by making it look like it was a pirate
right.
ship or something.
Right.
And no one ever thought about that before.
Sure. Yes, and so there's a perfect example of this balance between complexity and simplicity, because the technology inside an MRI scanner or a CT scanner is incredibly complex. But the patient doesn't even want to think about that complexity, right? And so what GE did, the work was led by a wonderful guy named Doug Dietz. What they did is tried to make the machine look less scary, look like a ride in an amusement park. And so yesterday I talked about the cartoon pirate ship version, but one of my favorites is the spaceship version, where the operator says, okay, now Johnny, we're going to go into hyperspace now, and you'll hear all the noises because it's very noisy. Those machines are quite noisy, right? But don't worry, that's part of the hyperspace engine. But you want to lay perfectly still because you'll get left behind when we make you switch it on the hyperdrive, right? And so, yes, it's a game, it's a distraction, but it works. And so in that particular case, the rate of anesthesiology for pediatric patients went from over 80% to under 10%. So this idea of simplicity.
Because till then children were being anesthetized because they couldn't take the
right.
pain.
There is a scary element to those scanners for people, and so especially for kids. And so you distract them just a little bit and turn it into a little game, and it's enough. I mean, the data says, there's been academic research to look at these systems. The data says it's enough that the kids can go through it because they're playing this game in their mind.
So what are the three big challenges that you're working on today? And I know it's a wide spectrum. I mean, you're dealing with technology, high-end technology,
sure.
Solving the problems of the poor. So what's in keeping you motivated or excited?
Sure.
At this
so
point?
let me express it in the way that I do like to express things, is design for things. And so we're working on design for learning, which is recreating education systems in the US and around the world. We just created a whole new school system in Peru called Innova Schools that is literally changing the education system of the country. And so that's design for learning. We're also working on what we call design for change, which is trying to get companies to innovate at a faster pace. And sometimes that involves culture change. We have a system called Creative Difference that allows companies to diagnose where is the innovations faster than slower, where's the creative confidence in their organization, when do they lack it, right? And so that's design for change. And then I personally am spending more time than on any other subject on design for ventures. And so that's the name of the new venture firm that we have just started, initially based in Tokyo, in Japan. But we want to create a stronger ecosystem for startups there, because India has a very, very robust network of startups, right? And I've heard about many new startups just since I've been here. But Japan historically has not been as strong, and so Design for Ventures is aimed at strengthening that.
Right. And what are the kind of companies that you're looking at? I mean,
well, I'm new to the venture world, and so one common characteristic is we need things that have the potential for an exponential growth, right? So, AI systems, right, that will cognify existing things where you can reinvent an industry, right? I'm particularly, because our fund is based in Japan initially, I'm interested in products and services for the elderly. Japan has more of an aging population issue than any nation in the world. And so if you're going to create something that can be used around the world, Japan is actually the best place in the world to do that right now. If you were going to create beach fashion, which is not our forte, we have worked on beach fashion actually, you'd go to Rio de Janeiro or maybe Miami Beach or some beach in Los Angeles like Malibu, right? Because that's where the beach cultures are, right? But if you want to design for the elderly, Japan is a very great, fertile ground to prototype.
Right. You also talked about design for change, which is working with companies.
Yes.
And I know it's a very vast subject. You have to work with companies. You have to understand why creativity is being stifled or it's not coming through the way it should.
Right.
So what are the 3 things or 2 or 3 things that you've taken away from your interactions, which should be sort of, something that every CEO or for that matter board should be thinking about?
Right. So when we're doing this diagnostic called creative difference, 3 of the things that we're looking for, and it's not the only 3, but 3 of the things we're looking for is some sort of human-centered element to the process, right? Because it's so nice and comfortable to just sit in your office, and talk to your peers about something new you're creating in the world. But we know from long experience that if you go out in the field and observe and capture firsthand data about customers or the people you care about, that it can lead to better insights. And so we're looking for that kind of human-centered process. We're looking for the courage, we call it creative confidence, to do prototypes, to do experiments, even knowing that some of those experiments are going to fail. It's the nature of innovation, right? But we're looking for groups within an organization that have the courage to do that a lot. Right? And then we're looking for this element about storytelling, about taking your ideas and pushing them out into the world using just the right story to kind of carry the message of your new idea.
Right. And the premise here is that there are creative people in your organization.
Yes.
It's up to you to find them and give them the platform.
Yes. So we deeply believe that this exists, that there is this creativity. And so as a leader, it's not my job to teach creativity. It is to unlock it. And it is, to be honest, it's maybe teaching some of the tools, and it's giving people permission to be creative, right? But it's there inside of it, it's there. Everybody has it in kindergarten, right, at age 5. And so some people kind of bury it a little more than others in subsequent years of their life. And so that's actually kind of good news, because I don't have to start from the beginning. I can just unlock it.
Right. So what's the 1 or 2 cool things that IDEO Labs is working on right now, which we could see in the market or experience it shortly?
We're working on everything.
That you can talk about. Yeah.
Sure. And I have a really fun one that I can't talk about right now. But I think one that we can point to in the world is we have a group called Mobility, and we're very, very interested in the future of autonomous vehicles. Right? I mean, this industry is going to be reinvented completely, right? And so it's already true that cars are really a big computer with sheet metal on the outside, but it is going to be, the amount of software and hardware that's going to go into autonomous vehicles, and there will be some, bumps along the way. We think it's fascinating. It's like we witnessed the transformation in digital from chemistry-based to digital photography. And that transformation is now basically complete, right? Chemistry-based photography is a boutique, a business for aficionados now, basically, right? And so it will go with autonomous vehicles. And so we want to look beyond the obvious, right? And look at the nuances of that. Like, okay, you're going to design these cars, but how about pedestrians? Right? When I was a kid, they taught us to look both ways before you cross the street. But now, at least in America, what they teach the kids is when you come to an intersection, try to make eye contact with the driver. Make sure that the driver sees you. Well, what do you do when there is no driver? How does the pedestrian know that the autonomous vehicle sees them? Right? it's a life or death question. You better be able to figure that out. And so there's many things like that. And so we are trying to be thought leaders in that mobility space.
Kelley, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Okay,
Thank you.
my pleasure.
Thank you.